It's Travel Michigan. I'm Dave Lorenz, and boy, we are really lucky to be able to introduce you to our next guest. I know how busy he is this time of year, especially with the big event, and I mean big event coming up very soon. It's called the Woodward Dream Cruise, and if you don't know something about the Woodward Dream Cruise, you probably haven't been around Michigan very long, because it has become an institution for many people, especially for car enthusiasts, and we're going to learn all about this year's Woodward Dream Cruise by introducing you to Tony Michaels. He's Executive Director of the Woodward Dream Cruise. How you doing, Tony?
I'm just doing great, and boy, we're 2 weeks away. Isn't it exciting? Yeah,
well, of course, it's a big event. Woodward Dream Cruise is one of these big events that is all part of what we call the Autopalooza. These are big events that have to do with automotive culture in Michigan. The Motor Cities National Heritage Area is always happy to promote Woodward Dream Cruise as part of these other big events, including Michigan International Speedway, Pure Michigan 400, and so many other things. So Woodward Dream Cruise, it's called the world's largest one-day automotive event. Amazing.
Yeah, and it really is. In fact, so much that 2 years ago, Chevrolet decided to become the presenting sponsor. So now, of course, it is the Woodward Dream Cruise presented by Chevrolet, and we couldn't be prouder. And our executive director team and the board is just elated to have Chevrolet along. And it just shows, as you said, the strength and the magnitude of this event, in this city.
Well, let's get to some of the numbers, because I think people who aren't very familiar with Woodward Dream Cruise might be a bit surprised at the sheer numbers, the number of cars, the number of people who come to see them. Tell us about that.
Well, there'll be over 45,000 vehicles rolling down Woodward that day. And when you think about it, the speed that they go, it's minimal. I mean, they're just crawling. And they have 45,000 of these amazing vehicles. It's just great. There'll be well over 1 million people lining Woodward. And please understand, it's 16 miles long. So 16 miles is an awfully long way. And there's people coming and going all day long. And, to that, what we say, like that big crescendo is, that mid-afternoon right into the evening when it's just jammed, and so much fun on Woodward.
Well, I always, I'm from West Michigan, so when I think of Woodward Dream Cruise, I think of Detroit, but it's really, Woodward Dream Cruise is more than Detroit. It spans miles. How far does this go, and where should people go to find the best viewing?
Well, it truly is 16 miles long, and look, we just say find a great spot on Woodward all the way from Ferndale out to Pontiac. And, there are areas that are busier than others. That whole hub around 13 Mile in Woodward in Royal Oak, and then Ferndale with all of their great things going on, and then out in Birmingham Way where you have the Chevrolet display and the triangle there, and it just keeps going. So we simply say enjoy yourself. This is truly one of those family events, one of those events where you just come out and the nostalgia and the feel-good really lifts this community to a new high. It really does.
Yeah, I bet it does. And, what tips do you have for people who maybe are first-timers to the Woodward Dream Cruise? Any tips on, ease of getting into a place to sit and watch the cars go by?
Yeah, come out early. There's parking where you find it. I mean, that's really how it is. There's lots, of course, but then there's neighborhoods that you can park in, and just come down early and take it in and take a walk. We always urge people, walk a couple of miles down Woodward, take in the different flavor from the different areas, and it just becomes one of those days that's really memorable. The other thing is, people say, well, kids really don't know about these cars from the 50s and 60s and so on. I'll tell you what, when they see them, they're really marveled at what they are and what we had years ago, and how it transcends to today. It's really great entertainment.
Sounds like an event where you want to wear comfortable shoes. And do you should you plan on bringing refreshments and snacks and such, or are there vendors along the way and restaurants that people can utilize?
Well, there's, of course, and we urge that people use the restaurants and give them business. I mean, this is great because they support what goes on in Woodward. So we're always saying, stop in the restaurants, utilize them, and so on. There's a few vendors on the streets, not that many, depending on the area. They're not members of Woodward Dream Cruise Inc., which is our group, which involves all the communities. We do have the merchandise stands, and those are, all down Woodward, so you can get your great Woodward Dream Cruise souvenirs and so on. But really utilize these amazing restaurants and shops and so on, because they help make this all happen.
Well, I know that the Woodward Dream Cruise collects money for charities, and I wonder if you could just talk about that a little bit. And how do you actually bring in the income to give to the charities?
Well, our group, the executive director team, and Marty Paluziak, who's part of our team, sells the sponsorships. And that money comes in to do a lot of things. Of course, pay the executive director team for what they do. But way beyond that is for the porta-johns for each of the cities. We write checks to each of the cities when the event is over. Last year, each community got about $5,000 to help with the police force and so on. We're hoping now that there's more sponsors involved. And a year ago, we added the the 5K race, the morning of the event itself, to bring in more money and to be able to start writing much larger checks to the communities. And that would be great.
Yeah. So, this is going to sound a little crazy, but what types of cars are people going to see here? And I know how maybe that's silly that question sounds.
You're going to see it all. You're going to see the great Chevy Camaros and the Mustangs and my God, the Impalas from years gone by, and some of the great Chrysler products, and then some of the real homebred type of vehicles that people have worked on themselves. It is just everything you can imagine and more. As you sit on Woodward and watch it go by, you'll see a souped-up hearse out of the blue, right next to a Mustang, next to a Camaro, as I said, and it just doesn't stop. And the car clubs are phenomenal in their involvement in this, and it really is a smile event. That's what it is. It's just all about fun and all about nostalgia.
Well, it's certainly about the the southeastern Michigan culture being so automotive related, and this is a big year for some cars, like Corvette, anniversary year for Corvette. Should we expect to see more Corvettes this year than normal?
No, that's a very good question. There's always quite a few out on the road that day, and I think you'll see a lot of them. The logo this year is the Impala from days gone by, and the new Impala is just coming out from Chevrolet. So that's a great comparison, something to watch that day. But again, you're just going to see it all. Everything you've ever imagined and more is on Woodward that morning. And one of the most important things that I like to say is how great of these communities, when you think about it, the communities spanning Woodward who are involved in this, who have the police force out, and really do such an amazing job to make sure people have a good time, on this day.
I agree.
It's phenomenal.
Of course, Woodward
Really
Dream Cruise coming up August 17th. You look at the Back to the Bricks weekend in Flint, the 13th through the 17th, the Pure Michigan 400 weekend, the 17th and 18th, and it just goes on and on. Cruise and Hines on the 25th. So many of these cool events. Recommend you check them out. And actually, give you a couple of points of information. Go to motorcities.org for information on what we call the Autopalooza, the kind of these big events all over. And then for details on Woodward Dream Cruise, make sure to go to woodwarddreamcruise.com. Great website with great information, and as Tony mentions, support these sponsors and help these charities out as well. Well, that's all the time we have for today. We want to thank Tony Michaels for joining us, and thank all of our guests. Thanks to Michelle Benage for joining me here today, and to Mark Blackwell for engineering today's program. We hope you join us next week right here on Travel Michigan, where your trip begins at michigan.org.